So, nutritional biochemistry. But today specifically, I'll be talking about what is in our food. So like I said, you guys have known me for a short period of time and realize that I do like people to eat more animals, especially if they're strictly Caucasian. And so now I'm actually going to break down the science of why that this is the philosophies that I teach. And even if a person lives by the equator, there are certain foods that they should stay away from. Because certain fruits, like an apple, will carry a small amount of oxalates sometimes, but not enough to actually harm you or increase your histamine levels. But all nuts and seeds do, even the macadamia nuts and pumpkin seeds that I teach, but they have a lot lower levels. So a macadamia nut is not shelled. And so we can break that down as a human. Mainly only squirrels, deers, animals that are pretty much vegan per se. Now deers will eat meat occasionally if they're very hungry, if they're starving and they can't find enough acorns. But all that to say, these animals are made to break down oxalates, lectins, and alcohol, which humans are not. We are not made to break down these things, and I'm going to go into why. And this is why, and I'm going to present this knowledge today with ease. Like last time, I get real fired up about the plant-based diet because I have done them. Even Mitch here said he has been a vegan in the past and can speak from experience. For instance, they are usually very deficient in their blood work in certain vitamins and minerals, and it's usually specifically all B vitamins. It's vitamin D, A, calcium. So usually they have early signs of osteoporosis. They have very poor mental health, very poor stool samples. And so this is why oxalates hinder our nutrient absorption. So an example would be spinach, leafy greens. Now I'm not saying spinach can't cool you down or be good for your heart, or it's full of K2 in your blood, things like that. But anybody that thinks that they can take in the calcium from things like spinach is just simply wrong. And I say that because oxalates inhibit the ability to take in the calcium. So, for instance, things that are filled with oxalates are mainly going to be things like cacao, nuts, soybeans, wheat has some, peanuts. Peanuts are toxic. Not only are they filled with oxalates, but they are filled with polyunsaturated fat, and that gives us omega-6 fatty acid that is inflammatory, that does cause heart disease and type 2 diabetes. And we'll get into why the old theories of red meat, they were teaching that it caused heart disease, but there is no evidence that red meat has ever caused heart disease, and I will prove that today in class. And we will all change our minds, hopefully, today about red meat being a culprit in eggs, because I'm not going to lie, when I first started eating this way and so much red meat, I would get in my head sometimes. I'd be like, oh my God, my cholesterol is probably getting high. It is, but then I would actually have my blood work done, and it would be like 205. It would be 5 points over, which I don't worry about at all. And we may discuss that today or may not, on why the LDL cholesterol actually helps our muscles heal. It's good for our brain. It's good for our testosterone levels, and then the whole theory behind LDL causing coronary artery disease or heart disease is really false information. And what you actually want to look at would be C-reactive protein and homeocysteine levels and triglycerides and blood pressure. So if all that's high and your blood sugars are elevated, then you're probably at risk for heart disease. But if your blood sugars are good, your C-reactive protein's good, your blood pressure's good, if your LDL is high, it probably means you have high testosterone or you have an injury or you work out all the time. Because LDL binds to the testosterone molecule to help the muscles heal. Anything heal. So when I see people with low LDL, usually too their cognition's poor because the brain is made out of mainly LDL, omega-3s. So that's the thing, like the saturated fat that we get is mainly, that's what our brain is made out of. So if we have low LDL, it usually means we're not getting enough nutrition to our brain from the food that we're eating. That's why omega-3s are so important. So again, yin and yang, you're probably wondering why that I have that up there. There are foods that cool you down and there are foods that heat you up. So foods that cool you down are going to be more yin, and foods that heat you up are going to be more yang. So I'm a double fire sign. I'm Sagittarius, my moon sign is in Aries. So I eat a lot of foods actually that cool me down. So I eat a lot of fatty fish, I eat eggs, I eat duck eggs. I actually eat quite a bit of macadamia nuts. And I do eat spinach sometimes. But in the afternoons is usually when I need things to cool me down. In the mornings, I need things to keep me up because of cortisol levels. So when cortisol rises in the morning, it is not anabolic, it's actually catabolic. So when we get up in the morning, our cortisol rises. If we drink coffee in the morning fasted, that's filled with oxalates. So therefore, you become more yin, you drop your testosterone and your DHEA. So this is what Dr. Rhett Kinney and I figured out with our clients doing their blood work. Is when a person wakes up in the morning, especially early, and drinks coffee before the sun comes up, their cortisol levels can double, even triple sometimes. And what that does is that our norepinephrine also goes through the roof, okay, which is a chemical in our brain, and that depletes our DHEA levels. And so that chemical specifically is very good for balancing cortisol. DHEA and B vitamins lower cortisol. So we can counteract cortisol levels with DHEA and B vitamins. But guess what that's in? Red meat is filled with B vitamins. Most people eating plant-based diets are not getting enough B vitamins, so they have severely high cortisol levels in the morning. And it actually causes very poor mental health, mood swings, and bipolar disorder. It actually can be very serious, and that's because they have way too much yin. So as cortisol rises, all the anabolic hormones drop, and it literally can ruin your day. So that's why a lot of times, if you actually start your day out with some beef and a couple eggs, it's kind of a mixture of yin and yang, and it's a good balance. And usually you have a lot of energy for the day because you just gave yourself creatine, B vitamins, and L-arginine, and enough protein. And therefore, you are not hungry usually for 4 to 5 hours, and that is how we're designed. If you eat breakfast and you're hungry in 2 hours, it's because you're nutrient deficient and that you didn't get enough nutrition from your food. Because again, we aren't chasing calories, we're chasing micronutrients in our food. And so like if you're a collegiate athlete, you may need more calories, than a normal person, of course. But your body is still just craving nutrients. So if you have this athlete over here, and he's eating Tyson chicken and white rice, and then you got 6 times a day, but then you got this football player over here that's outperforming the other one because he's mainly eating red meat, eggs, and sweet potato all day, and he's only eating 3 or 4 meals a day. It's because this athlete's getting way more nutrition, and so he's not hungry all the time because he's feeding his body what it desires. So truth be told, this is what I see too with plant-based diets. These people are eating all day. Mitch, when you were a vegan, did you feel hungry all the time?
Yes.
Did you snack way more?
More than, yeah.
So,
way too more.
Yeah, and so like you and I both know for gut health that meal spacing is so important, even between our meals and a small intermittent fast. And so when you become plant-based, you don't ever get the nutrients that you need because all these plants are filled with oxalates, lectins, and alkaloids. And so specifically foods that oxalates are in are going to be leafy greens, cacao, coffee, nuts, and seeds. Okay? So truth be told, a lot of people don't want to do dairy milk anymore, and most people can't deal with it. I have clients, I will not let them put it into their body, but if you can do it, raw milk contains more calcium than anything out there for humans. But this is what's bad, specifically mainly Caucasian are the only race that can continue to do lactose throughout their life. And most cannot due to eating too much wheat, and the glyphosate ruined their microbiome and they can't break down lactose at all anymore. But at least in raw milk, you have lactase and the enzymes to break it down, whereas pasteurized milk, you do not have the enzymes to break down lactose. And so therefore it becomes severely inflammatory. Your liver, pancreas, and gallbladder hate you pretty much because they're overworking themselves to produce enzymes to break down lactose, which can actually result in autoimmune disease and thyroid conditions. So now I'm going to talk about histamine specifically. Why that oxalates, lectins, and alkaloids, yin, causes thyroid conditions. Okay? Because these foods are are inhibiting your nutrient intake of the vitamins and minerals that you need for your thyroid to function. Okay? So let's just say that you're living on peanuts, wheat, soy, and kale. Even if you're eating some red meat with that, you will not take in any of the nutrients from the other foods that you're eating because your body is filled with these things. And that will result in a cold body. When your cortisol goes up, your hands are cold. So that means your thyroid production drops big time. Your metabolism is actually slowed, and you will gain a lot of unwanted belly fat in this area because of cortisol issues. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm in the process of coming out of vegan.
Yeah.
And my fingers would get so cold they would be numb.
Totally.
And I couldn't do anything.
100%. And so what you saw there too is it starts to make you have very poor nitric oxide production. So it actually will start to kill the nerves in your feet and fingers like diabetes, like having high blood sugar all the time. So if you have high blood sugar all the time, and you are literally eating, which they're teaching this in the endocrinology center. So imagine you have high blood sugar. You go see a diabetes nutritionist. They're telling you to eat peanuts, wheat, soy, kale, leafy greens, nuts. So guess what's going on there? You're going to have severe problems with your nerves at that point. Your cortisol is going to go through the roof. You're going to have severe gut health, poor gut health, and things aren't going to open up in the way that you would like to fulfill curing your